All right, welcome back. So at this point, you've gotten a little bit of practice with our one-star dogs, whether you're a staff member or a volunteer. So you're kind of getting the lay of the land, understanding where stuff is. And we can take it a step up now and talk through the most effective ways to document important information so that we can make good use of it. Just because it might have been a minute since you looked at this stuff, we'll go quickly through our star system again. So we have a series of 1 to 4 stars that we rate our dogs behaviorally so that we can make sure that they're being handled by folks that are, able to successfully handle them and have everything that they need to do so. 1-star dogs are the guys that you've been working on so far. So these are dogs that are pretty affiliative with people, no concerning behaviors really with other dogs, easy to handle, keep their forepaws on the ground for most of the interaction, happy-go-lucky, just add water dogs. 2-star dogs might have a little bit more going on, and we're going to work you up to that level in the next training. But these are guys that are still affiliative with people, but they might demonstrate clearly with their body language when they need space. So it'll take a handler that's a little bit more in tune with dog body language to let them move away or to choose to move away when the dog is asking for it. They might get a little jumpy or mouthy at times, but these behaviors are pretty easy to redirect with simple training games and food. And fear, anxiety, and stress might increase with body handling, but again, we're seeing clear body language demonstration that they need space. They may also have some reactivity with other dogs. 3-star dogs are actually behaviorally consistent with 1 or 2-star dogs. They are just not cleared for volunteer interaction because of another reason. So most common, this is because the dog has come in behaviorally, they're just fine, but their rabies vaccine status is out of date and we can't get them vaccinated until the vet is next in the building. So in those cases, staff that are trained up to 2-star can handle them. And as soon as they are rabies vaccinated, their star level will be updated so that volunteers can handle them as well. And then 4-star dogs are the ones that end up being my friends. These are guys that have bigger issues going on, and we need to do more targeted intervention for them to kind of help them be successful and maintain good welfare. So we might be seeing a lack of affiliation with people, or even just kind of like aggressive signaling toward a person or people, jumping and mouthing with harder to redirect behaviors, requiring some defensive maneuvering, and then higher FAS with body handling, higher FAS in the presence of other dogs. And as with all of the levels here, we have a note at the bottom. So depending on the size of the dog and available home history, we might level up or down in addition to the behaviors that are presenting in care. But senior staff assign these levels at intake, and then we kind of adjust as needed. As a general rule, whether you're a volunteer or a staff person, if you don't see signage on a dog's kennel and you can't find anybody to ask, assume that that dog is 4-star until you can figure out otherwise. To orient us a little bit, this is where we are in our training. So if you're a volunteer taking this class, you've already done your online body language class and you've done some shadow and mentoring sessions with mentors, and now you are happily and successfully walking 1-star dogs. If you're a staff person, you've done your body language online class, you've done your basic handling online class, and you've done a 1-hour hands-on session, potentially with me or with one of our senior staffers. Now we're moving into our notes how-to class. So like I said at the beginning, we've got some of those basic skills under our belt. We're feeling a little bit more confident. And now we can talk through how, when, and where to document information that we are observing when we handle these dogs. So documenting behavior is not as easy as it sounds. And I'm going to push you throughout your time at MHS to really observe with your senses and not with your stories. So if we look at this alpaca here, what can we directly observe about this animal? What is the animal's body doing, the face, the ears, the neck? I'll give you a minute to think about it, and then I'll kind of share some observations. So when I look objectively at this animal, I see that she's lying down. I know this is, her name is Dulce, she's a girl. Dulce is lying down. Her forearms are kind of flat on the ground. Her chin is resting on the ground. Mouth is closed. Ears are kind of to the side. Eyes look soft. I don't actually really know alpaca behavior very well, but they look soft to me. So then when we take those objective descriptions, we can put them all together and see like what does this constellation of objective observations potentially tell us about the animal's internal state, rather than jumping to like alpaca Dulce is depressed or Dulce is sick, Dulce is thirsty, Dulce is tired. She might be any one of those things, but we don't actually know by looking at her. And we need to kind of like zoom out, not only in the picture, but in like the broader context of what's going on in her day, a broader understanding of the alpaca behavioral ethogram and what alpacas normally do and don't normally do to really gain understanding. And the reason I stress this is because if you're handling a dog at MHS and you have whatever interaction you have with that dog, and then you come back and you tell me that the dog was sad, I don't know what you mean. I don't know what your flavor of sad is, what you see when you see sad. So by instead focusing on like Dolce was lying down, her head was on the grounds, her mouth was closed, she wasn't looking at me, whatever the thing is, focus on those objective things that you can see. And to the extent possible that you can hear, touch, smell, all of your senses. Maybe not taste. So some ways to practice reframing. Instead of telling me that Bandit was happy to see you, what was Bandit's body doing? Bandit's whole body wiggled. He did tippy taps with his feet. Instead of saying that Gravy got really angry when he saw another dog, maybe Gravy's spine straightened and his weight shifted forward while he pulled toward another dog and he was barking. Instead of telling me that Django is sad, tell me that Django did not lift his head when I entered his kennel, and he did not take any treats. These are all objective things that I can imagine in my head when you tell me, and we can make sure that we're on the same page. And if you'll notice, I'm not even asking for like crazy scientific language. Like tippy taps is fine as long as you can operationalize what tippy taps means. We don't have to get really, really scientific and professional. I just want you to tell me what you see. So we'll watch this video twice. It's very short. And the first one, just kind of see what you notice about this dog's body language. This dog's name is Gravy. All right, and we're going to watch it again, and this time I'll kind of narrate some things that I notice. Again, just objective description. I'm not putting any kind of value on the description. Head's down, his ears are slightly rotated forward. His walk is a little stiff, tail wag is wide, it's kind of arcing towards the face. Spine is a little arched. Head goes slightly up and then he turns. Spine seems to be soft. Body weight forward. Does not seem to be reacting in any way to the noise in the space. And that walk out with his face down. So I have the advantage of having worked with this dog for 6 months. I know his body language pretty well, so I can kind of bring that into this interpretation. But if I try to leave that aside and I just focus on what I'm seeing here, this looks like a relaxed dog. So he is not overly hype about all of the sounds coming in. He's just kind of going to his little treat station, finding his next little treat station, finding his next little treat station, and then going out on his walk. And we see a lot of soft body language there. We see that wide tail wag. These are all things that we've learned in our body language class are indicative of a lower arousal, positive valence state. So this is a lot, but I want you to remember that you'll be able to kind of look back at these slides if you get confused or forget. And in time, this will actually just happen naturally for you. But let's say that you are a volunteer and you're walking a dog, and when you come back from your walk, you have things to say. You've got information to share, burning in your pocket. You really need to tell somebody. let's triage that information a little bit. So first, were you or the animal or anyone involved injured? If the animal put teeth or claws on you or anyone or anything, or if you have a question that needs an immediate response or maybe doesn't need an immediate response, or if this is information that can inform that animal's pathway plan. And by that, I mean that it's maybe a safety issue that we need to know about to make sure that we are placing that animal safely in the community. Or maybe it's honestly just something super cute, like this dog plays fetch really well and drops the toy without prompting. That's a great note to have in his file because it's going to help get him adopted. So depending on what kind of thing you have to say, filter it this way. So again, if anyone was injured, this is going to be something that you want to grab staff immediately for. It is okay to interrupt whatever staff person you find and you will get the help that you need. Same thing, if animals put teeth or claws on you or anyone or anything, even if they don't break skin, they're not in trouble, but this is really important that we're told of this immediately because we can make welfare interventions for that animal and help them to feel more supported. If you have a question that needs an immediate response, I leave that to your judgment, but alert staff if it is an emergency. If it does not need an immediate response, you can enter notes in our Google Sheet, and I'm going to talk about that on the next slide. And then if it's information that informs the pathway plan, again, like dog likes to play fetch, something like that, yes, put it in the Google Sheet. No, thank you so much, but no need to document. And I don't mean to imply that observations are ever not important or not useful, but the flood of information that staff receives from multiple stakeholders every single day can be overwhelming. So sometimes having that information that's not really necessary in any kind of like active way for moving an animal through the shelter, it can be helpful to just not share that information. If you really need to, put it in the Google Sheet, but try to avoid interrupting staff to let them know about that detail. So this is what our Google Sheet looks like. You've probably already gotten a link to it if you're a volunteer. And if you're a staff member, don't zone out because this is actually really helpful for you too. So on the first tab, we organize our volunteer schedule. And this is from whatever day, the week of February 1st. So you can see, you already know what this looks like, but you can see like who's coming in when and which mentors are here and that kind of thing. When you want to put in observations, you'll want to tab over to the active observations tab at the bottom of the screen. And then you'll see a list of date, volunteer name, animal name, relevant notes, and then any staff follow-up. So this is where you can put all of that rich qualitative, and you can see some really good examples here. So Jan and Kathy wrote about River. We walked River for the first time today. He was great on leash, no jumping, and not the least bit mouthy. For context, River had had some jumpy mouthy issues in care. He was a bit nervous with us at first, but we worked through it thanks to all of Kara's good tips. He enjoyed his walk. He did really good, great considering it was our first encounter. So that's super helpful. We can continue to operationalize some of these pieces like a bit nervous. Curious what that means, but in the moment it might not have been as critical to understand that because River, for example, was like pretty high on my radar at the time that this note was written. And then you'll see as I get to it, I respond. If you ask a question in here, I'll respond to the question, but otherwise it's just like a thank you, glad to hear it, whatever. So as animals get adopted or move out of the system, they'll get removed from the active observation sheet. Why this is helpful for staff is when you guys are answering the phone and you get a random call from somebody that's interested in River, for example, you can pull up the volunteer observation sheet and see all kinds of interesting and cute and adoptable information that you can share with an adopter. So staff, and particularly our new shelter techs, which is primarily who this training is targeted toward in terms of staff. When you have things to say about an animal, we also want to hear that. And there are ways to triage that information so that it's effective. So similar to volunteers, if an animal was injured, or if you were injured, or if an animal was injured, anybody, Or if you get teeth or claws on you, anyone, or anything, alert the coordinator um, or the manager on shift. So that will get easier. It's kind of difficult because it changes every day, but alert the person in charge. On a weekend, it might be the feline coordinator or the animal canine behavior specialist, or it might be a manager during the weekday, but it'll depend. If you have a question that needs immediate response, again, seek out that person. If this question does not need an immediate response, email the canine lead, behavior specialist, and CC your manager. If you've got information that informs the pathway plan, again, cute information that's going to help get that animal adopted, put your notes in pet point, and we'll go through that on the next slide. If it doesn't, thank you so much. Love you. No need to document. We also document notable behavior, feeding, and potty data. This sheet is used primarily for staff at second and fourth outs. Second and fourth outs are the second and fourth times that dogs get a scheduled potty break. It's around 9:30 a.m. and then around 5 p.m. every day. So this will primarily pertain to staff, but if you're a volunteer and you're walking dogs and you're here at 9:30 a.m. or you're here at 5 p.m., a staff member might ask you if you can grab X dog and do their fourth out or their second out. But we collect information on how much breakfast and dinner they ate, their water consumption, fear, anxiety, and stress score, and you'll see around the shelter, this scoring sheet is actually posted in the building, and I've actually got an image of it on the next slide. And then position in the shelter kennel. So are they at the front, back, or middle of the space, or are they hiding? Anything interesting can go in the notes. And for notable potty data, I really mean anything that's not normal. So if we see that we can't find evidence of the dog pooping for more than a day, that needs to be noted. If we're seeing excessive diarrhea, that needs to be noted. And you would specifically put those notes in here. If you're not sure if something matters, just err on the side of writing it down and we can get to it. I do a check of the data sheets every day that I'm in the shelter. So if we don't talk about it at some point in person, I'll see it on the sheet and we can make sure that we're tracking it. So this is something you'll see all around the shelter. This is the fear-free spectrum of fear, anxiety, and stress. We use these scores of 0 to 5 to track how an animal is doing in care. It's not a perfect system. In particular, our high arousal, jumpy mouthy kids that are not aggressive don't really fall anywhere here. And what I typically do when I'm seeing somebody with like wide pupil or wide eyes, dilated pupils, panting and jumping, but I'm not seeing aggressive displays, I usually rate that as an FAS 3. And that is typically how staff do it. We kind of have to keep coming back to training and calibrating on those levels. So for Pet Point, this is for staff, volunteers, interesting for you, but you're not gonna have to work in our clunky system, don't worry about it. But if you wanna put behavior notes in Pet Point, you'll go to Pet Point and type in that animal's name, click on their record, click on memos and files, add a memo, select behavior in the memo type and staff notes in the subtype, and then tell us what happened. This is an example from Kathleen, who's a senior shelter tech. Dog intro with Theo, a similarly sized dog, in the community room with visual barriers. Ella initially ignored Theo, but willingly went up to fence to greet when encouraged. Remained loose when approaching the fence, but whole body stiffened when they went nose to nose through the fence. And it goes on through there. So you can see it's nice objective language. We're not saying Ella was scared or Theo was forceful or anything like that. We're actually just describing what happened. This is key because when I go back and want to see, do I think Ella could be in a home with another dog? Seeing this note kind of helps me get a direction of if that's a yes or a no, and if yes, like what kind of dog are we looking for? What would that dog intro look like? So it really, really helps me to be able to document this stuff. Medical concerns are also important to document. I'm sure you're shocked to hear that. So first, details are really important. And this slide is kind of based on just my personal experience with trying to tell a vet something and then immediately getting 1,000 questions back. It can be a little overwhelming. So if you think about it and you're kind of like prepared when you're going in to notify medical team about something, we want to make sure that we're taking note of the duration of the observation that we're seeing, intensity, frequency, and specificity. So again, some examples. If there was a dog who peed for 2 minutes straight, that's a duration that we want to take note of. River was not able to put weight on his hind leg. That gives us a sense of the intensity of the medical issue that we're seeing. How many times we're seeing something happen. Pretty Boy shook his head 5 times on our walk. Specificity, undigested kibble with a little bit of clear bile was what the vomit looked like. We also have a chart for describing poop. So this is really helpful because just like behavior, my definition of diarrhea might not be your definition of diarrhea. But if we go off of the chart on a score of 1 to 7, I know what a 6 is, and so do you. In general, I am most concerned about 1s and then 6s and 7s. 2s to 5s are good to keep track of, but not super concerned about it. So in addition to the outs sheet that we talked over with like the second and fourth outs, those sheets are on the front of everybody's kennel. And then we also have this piece. It's a relic of an older system, but it actually still works quite well, and our volunteer team is quite used to it. So we keep this here because it tracks other potty data outside of the 4 outs a day. In addition to 4 outs a day, our dogs get walked by volunteers whenever volunteers are able to walk them. And we want to make sure that we're tracking that potty data as well, because if the only time that the dog is going to the bathroom is with a volunteer outside of the out system, then to staff, it looks like the dog is not using the bathroom, and that's a medical issue. So here, what you do, primarily for volunteers, but staff, if you are walking a dog just kind of for extra enrichment and they poop and pee, it can be really helpful if you note it here as well. So date, time, initials, what happened on a walk, a poop or a pee. Kennel yard means like you found it in the kennel or the yard. And then comments. So this can be where you describe like the fecal score, for example. This is what one looks like from a while back. So we can see lots and lots of notations here. Plus plus means a pee and a poop. Plus minus means pee, no poop. Minus plus means no pee and yes poop. That's a kind of rare one to see. And then minus minus means no pee, no poop. Also, I love it when you tell us the fecal score in the comments. It really, really helps to track. For your awareness, we can start our dogs on a like diarrhea protocol if we see 2 days in a row of consistent 6s and 7s. We also have a constipation protocol that we can start them on if we see no elimination or consistent 1s for a couple of days. So it's really, really useful to track those data, even though it's a little gross. All right, so let's say that a volunteer has things to say about an animal's medical condition. This is a little bit less branchy than the behavior piece, but if an animal is like having a medical emergency, they are bleeding actively, they can't stand, they're having a seizure, alert staff immediately. It is okay to interrupt. Grab the first person in a staff shirt that you find, and we will take it from there. If the animal appears uncomfortable or painful, like they're shaking their head, maybe they're avoiding putting weight on something, but it's not consistent, check in with the dog lead at some point during your shift and note it in the Google Sheet. So the dog lead is listed on the walk list that volunteers have access to at the front of the building. That changes every day depending on which staff are on shift. But check in with that person and let them know. If they're having a weird bowel movement or a weird pee, like they're excessively peeing or they're not peeing at all, put those notes in the paper data sheet. If you're a staff person, it changes a little bit, but it's really not that different. Again, if an animal's having a medical emergency, instead of just finding a staff person because you are a staff person, radio the medical team and bring that dog directly to the dog tech room. If the animal appears painful, uncomfortable, etc., write this on the whiteboard in dog tech and email the medical team. And then if they have funky bowel movements or pees, write this on the whiteboard in the dog tech room and record it on their cage card. So in summary, all of your information that you notice about animals is important. It's just that it's not all urgent. And to help keep our senior staff brains functioning, we can use this system to kind of funnel the most important or really the most urgent information in the right direction so that we can act on that. And then we still have a record of the stuff that is important but less urgent. You might not always get an immediate response or see action based on your observations that you've documented. It does not mean that your observation doesn't matter. It just means that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts. And a lot of times when you note a medical or behavioral thing, staff are already aware and already addressing it. So don't assume that we're just not listening to you. It's just a very, very busy place. All right, so reach out if you have questions, and the next training you'll be working on is focused on behavior issues with 2-star dogs.